The United States has the highest incarceration rate in the world. With over 1.8 million people behind bars, it's clear that mass incarceration is more than just a legal issue. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. But now something unprecedented is on the table. El Salvador, a country known for its extreme approach to crime, has offered to house American prisoners. Would this actually save money? Or would it be a disaster for human rights and criminal justice reform? In today's deep dive, we're going to break down how the U.S. prison system became a for-profit industry, the true cost of incarceration, what would happen if the U.S. actually outsourced its prisoners to El Salvador, and who wins or loses if this deal goes through? Let's get into it. America's prison system is not just about justice, it's a business. Right now, the U.S. spends over $80 billion a year on incarceration. But when you factor in private companies profiting from the system, the real number is much, much higher. Private prison corporations like CoreCivic and GEO Group have turned incarceration into a lucrative industry. Their business model? Keeping as many people locked up as possible. These companies lobby for stricter laws and tougher sentences. Then, the more inmates they house, the more money they make from government contracts. Even detention centers for immigrants are run by these same corporations. And here's something shocking. Private prisons have occupancy quotas in their contracts requiring states to keep prisons at least 80 to 90% full, or they get penalized financially. But it doesn't stop there. The prison system also relies on cheap labor from inmates. At the time, prisoners work in factories producing everything from military gear to fast food packaging. They earn as little as $23 per hour, while corporations rake in millions. Even major brands like Victoria's Secret, Starbucks, and Whole Foods have been linked to prison labor at some point. This raises a key question. If the U.S. moves prisoners overseas, what happens to this billion-dollar economy? So how much does it actually cost to keep someone behind bars in the U.S.? On average, it costs $40,000 per inmate per year, but in states like California, that number jumps to over $100,000 per year. Here's what that money goes toward. Security and staffing, the biggest expense, covering salaries for guards and administrators. Chassis, food, and health care. Some prisons spend as little as $2 per meal per prisoner, leading to serious nutrition problems. Facilities and maintenance. Many older prisons require constant upkeep. Now imagine if you could cut that cost by shipping prisoners overseas. That's exactly what El Salvador is proposing. Recently, El Salvador's President Nayib Bukele made a surprising offer. El Salvador will house American prisoners in its high-security mega-prisons. Why? Because the country already runs one of the harshest prison systems in the world. In 2023, El Salvador built a 40,000-person prison as part of its crackdown on gang violence. The conditions inside are brutal. Thousands of inmates crammed into small spaces. Little food or medical care. Extreme punishment for even minor rule violations. Bukele's government says they can house American prisoners for a fraction of the cost the U.S. spends. But is this really a good idea? If President Trump accepts this deal, it could reshape the U.S. prison industry. But let's look at the winners and losers. Winners. State governments. States could save millions by outsourcing prisoners, freeing up budgets for other programs. But private prison alternatives. If contracts shift from U.S. private prisons to El Salvador, new financial players will emerge. Tough on crime politicians. Politicians advocating for harsher sentencing could use this as proof they're solving prison overcrowding. Losers. Private prison corporations. Companies like CoreCivic and GEO Group could lose billions in government contracts. Expect heavy lobbying against this move. Human rights advocates. International groups will likely condemn the U.S. for sending prisoners to a country with documented human rights abuses. Inmates and families. Many American prisoners, some guilty of nonviolent crimes, could be sent thousands of miles away, making rehabilitation and family visits impossible. The bigger picture, should the U.S. reform instead? Instead of sending prisoners overseas, should the U.S. fix its own system instead? Many experts argue that the focus should be on criminal justice reform, ending private prison incentives that profit from keeping people locked up, expanding rehabilitation programs to reduce repeat offenses, reforming sentencing laws, especially for nonviolent drug offenses. Right now, the U.S. has a recidivism rate of over 60%, meaning most released prisoners end up back behind bars. Instead of exporting the problem, shouldn't we be fixing it? So what happens next? If Trump accepts this deal, we could see a massive shift in how the U.S. handles incarceration. But whether this is a cost-saving move or just a way to hide the problem remains to be seen. What do you think? Should the U.S. outsource its prisoners to El Salvador, or is this a dangerous precedent? Let us know in the comments. And if you found this deep dive informative, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a video.